Yes, lesson 7 introduced phrasing, and now it's phrasing part 2, the return of phrasing.
You need to do the movie trailer voice.
You do really, yes, but we'll move on from that quickly.
Yes.
So again, sort of learning outcomes is pretty much the same as what we experienced in part 1 in lesson 7. But we're going to be looking at strengthening our 16th notes, our single stroke rolls, through the use of phrasing, which will increase our ability to play with our non-lead hand, develop more fluency around the kit, or increased fluency around the kit, and create even more interesting fills than we did in lesson 7.
More interesting.
Correct.
Essentially, I mean, it's the same kind of things that we were talking about in lesson 7. We're just taking it that step further, a little bit more involved.
It's a continuation, absolutely. So what we're going to start off with by doing is, as we did in lesson 7, is kind of jumping to the final result at the beginning, so you get some idea of what it is that we're aiming to do. Okay, so we're trying to develop a creative use of the accenting structure that we've developed, with the right hand playing the accents on the one and the and the left hand playing the accents on the e and the and using the floor tom and the high tom, introducing that in that L shape, which you may remember from lesson 7.
I do indeed remember the L shape, yes.
Marvellous. So we're going to be, expanding that into our playing. What I'd like to do is just demonstrate pretty much our learning outcome that we're going to try and achieve at the beginning of the lesson, to hopefully sort of whet the appetite of our viewers.
Indeed. Brian.
Yes.
Do that demo.
I will do that demo. So here it comes. 3, 4. So,
indeed, lots going on there.
Lots and lots going on, and as the extractor showed there, the whole point of these exercises is to play them round and round and round and round, get good, get comfortable, repeat portions of the exercise which perhaps aren't moving so fluently. But what we're looking at there is being able to take the accent structures that we've developed and then be able to mix them up. Again, it's a bit like taking the 8th notes and 16th notes and quarter notes, as we did in lesson 4, and mix them up to create new patterns. What we're doing here is taking the accents, and instead of having the same accent throughout the bar, we're mixing the accents up to create more interesting phrases. Now, phrases or phrasing, musical phrases, comes from where, in the music, as you heard there, you sort of ba 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 da.
The human beatbox.
Lovely singing, huh? That phrase, almost musical in that particular instance.
No, it was.
The way we play it on the drums is to put a roll in the middle of it and highlight the notes as they come along. So it's da 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 da, and we're filling the gap. So with those little ghost notes that we talked about, that we're playing with the tap stroke, so we're filling it.
So is phrasing an extended fill, or is that the wrong way to look at it?
Well, no, it's when we play phrases on the drums, we're actually creating musical fills. They are fills, but they're musical. And so even at this early stage, in grade 1, we're still in grade 1, we're trying to say to the drummers, be musical, listen to the way phrases take place in your music, and listen to the musicality of it and how drummers phrase, so that you're not just playing fills, you're not just hitting quarter notes and eighth notes in a sort of abstract fashion around the kit. You're actually creating musical phrases in your fills. So I think most drummers will find these a little bit more interesting musically. It's moving in the direction that I'm interested in helping drummers progress in, so that they're not just playing techniques or what are called chops, lots of fast motions. They're actually playing in a musical way, creating musical phrases. That's the essence of what we're trying to do.
I like it.
Okay, so the concept here is creating a phrase, and to do that, what we have to do is actually understand how a phrase is constructed. And to do that, I'd like to use my notes, if I may.
I will let you.
You are
use
extraordinarily kind. So what we're going to do here is we're going to build a phrase step by step. So in exercise 1, what we have to do firstly is have a look at the phrase itself and understand the position of the accents. Well, that was quite straightforward in lesson 7 because we only had one type of accent in each bar. In this exercise, or in the other exercises are going to follow on in the lesson in part 2, we're going to have a series of accents in different places. Let's look at them. So this is the phrase that I've played, and it's written on the snare drum.
Okay, so the accents are the sort of upside down V that's above the notes there.
Yes, these are the kind of rooftops, as they're called, rooftop accents here.
Yeah.
So we've got an accent on beat 1, and then we've got a second accent on the and of 1. Then we've got a third accent on the and of 2.
Yeah.
A fourth accent on the E of 3. And finally, we have an accent on the and of 4. So we now know the position of the accents: 1 and 2 and 3, E and 4. And so that's the phrase that we're creating. That's how we play that. Now there's a very interesting point that we need to get in here, is that actually there's a rule we can now follow very carefully. What we need to understand is the sticking. You know, we talked about the order of the sticks.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we go down to our example below, I want to talk about the accenting sticking for a right-handed drummer. Now remember, we're using a single stroke roll, so right, left, all the way through. So the concept is here, if we're using single stroke rolls, what will happen is your accents will fall under a predetermined hand if you play the pattern.
Okay, so this is a handy rule to take note of.
Absolutely.
All right.
So the concept being is, here we've got the accents on the 1 and the and the E and the and. When we look at them, you'll see that the 1 and the ands fall underneath the right hand.
Yes.
And then the E falls on the left hand. Now we can recall that from when we were going through those exercises in lesson 7. Yeah, so 1 E-ander, 2 E-ander, falling on the hand.
I mean, you're always starting, if you're a right-handed player, you're always leading with your right.
Precisely.
So the first one is always going to be,
Yeah.
I understand.
So when you get onto your E's and your R's, they're always going to be on your left hand.
Yeah.
1 E, and then on the A, 1 E and A. So it's a rule. What will happen then is this will bleed into the way that you read. So when you see notes, you'll see which hand you'll actually understand. Your hands will actually read the notes before you read the notes, because they become familiar with that phrasing pattern. Okay, so what we should do is just demonstrate that quickly and play along to the exercise. Use the extractor. I'll play this on the snare drum, and we'll play it quite slowly so that we can follow the pattern, so that you can see the changing of the hands.
Yeah.
Now, being able to play different accents within the currency of only one bar means that you have to be extremely focused indeed, on making sure that you're moving fluently between them.
Like a Jedi warrior.
Well, more like a focused professional drummer is what I was thinking of.
Right.
But Jedi warrior, that works for many people. But the whole idea is that you're changing between your hands. You have to get that control of the kit together. So, okay, I've loaded the file up. I'm going to slow the tempo down here, nice and slowly.
60?
Well, I'm going to just go a little under that. I'm going to go to 55, just so that I can keep my breath and count clearly. Here it comes. 2 E and a 3, 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 and a 3 E and a 4 E and a... Okay, so that's enough for me. So the whole idea there is that you have to you've got different accents, different notes coming at you quite quickly. So, slowing the exercise down is very important, so you understand when to prepare your hands for the notes. But you can see we're creating a phrase now.
No, absolutely.
Now, we did the same thing in lesson 7 when we were building those phrases. I know we were only playing one accent in a particular bar, but now we're playing multiple accents within a bar. We started on the snare drum to get used to the pattern. Then the next thing to do will be to look to move those accents onto the toms. And you can remember where we moved the right hand accent, can't you?
Yep, to the low tom.
And the left hand accent?
High tom.
Brilliant. Okay. So what I'd like to do now is just move on to our second exercise. So we're developing movement and fluency, and we're now going to play the same pattern, but this time put the ones and the ands on the beats and on the ands over onto the floor tom on our right hand side, and then we're going to play the E's and the R's on our left hand side.
Okay.
Up on the high tom. Here it comes. 3, 4. 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. Make sense?
You know what? It makes perfect sense. Everything makes perfect sense to me.